All right, day 3. We are still not actually starting the dopamine fast yet, although if you want to, you can. But this prep work is very helpful for setting us up for success. So, what we're doing today is coming up with our self-binding strategies. What does that mean? It means the plan. How are we going to do this? How are we going to tackle each of the addictions that we are trying to tackle here? So, self-binding strategies are different ways that we can make it more difficult for ourselves to access our pleasurable stimuli of choice. There are 3 categories of self-binding strategies, and the first one is considered a chronological strategy. Chronological self-binding strategies involve time. Any way that we can utilize time to make it a little more difficult for us to access whatever addictions it is that we're kicking, or how can we utilize time to be very structured around the things that we can't quit completely. So, for example, my phone addiction is my primary addiction that I am tackling with this dopamine fast. And as I said before, I can't just stop using my phone altogether. So chronological strategies are very helpful for things like this that we want to use in moderation and with intention. So, for example, I do not want to be checking my phone in the morning. So I have a strategy or a policy, I should say, of no phone use before 9 a.m. So before 9 a.m., I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not touching it. I'm going to start my morning unplugged, if you will. Same is true for the evening. When I go to bed at night, I want my hours before bedtime to be spent not looking at a screen, not staring into blue light. By the way, this is a pretty good strategy even if you're not trying to kick phone addiction, because the blue light that we get from our screens very much disrupts our circadian rhythms, tricks our brain into thinking it's still daylight. So these are examples of ways that we can use time to be very structured about our use. So write down each of your addictions, whatever the things are that you're tackling during this fast. And for each one, see if there's a way that you can create some sort of policy or some sort of rule to regulate either the time of day that you are and are not using or engaging in that behavior, or maybe you give yourself a specific amount of time that you are allowing yourself to engage in that behavior every day. Time is the name of the game when it comes to chronological self-binding techniques. So that's category 1. Category 2 are geographical self-binding techniques. So geography, we're talking about space, distance. How can we utilize space and distance to make it more inconvenient to access our drug of choice, even if it's not a drug? My phone is my drug. I have a device called a brick, which I probably should have had for this video. It's a little teeny tiny plastic square with a little chip in it. And what it does, when I download the brick app to my phone and go through, I can select the apps on my phone that I want the brick to block for me. So this is a physical device, and that's important. Any of you out there who are struggling with phone addiction know that the screen time limits on your phone don't mean nothing. I swipe right through them. They're just a suggestion. They don't stop me from scrolling. The brick, when I tap my phone to the brick, it blocks all of the apps that I don't want to have access to, and then I leave that brick somewhere that is inconvenient for me. So I don't want to be using my phone while I'm at work, so I brick my phone at the beginning of the day. In fact, for the majority of my dopamine fast, my phone is going to be bricked at all times unless I need to access specific apps. I run an online business. I have to have a social media presence, but I don't want to be scrolling social media. So I'm using a combination of chronological and geographical self-binding techniques here, where my phone is bricked all the time. I brick the phone and then I leave it up on a high shelf, somewhere where it's just inconvenient enough that if I click on Instagram habitually and it tells me you can't access this right now because your phone is bricked, I'm not that desperate that I'm going to go to a whole other floor of the house and reach up to the high shelf and get the brick and unbrick it and access the Instagram. That little bit of distance makes it just inconvenient enough that I'm not going to do that. And then my chronological strategy using time is that there are specific times of my week that I have planned out, and that's what you're doing here is you're writing down your plan. There are specific times during my week that I am going to allow myself to have a specific amount of time to be on social media, specifically to post to my business account. I'm going to unbrick just for that amount of time, rebrick, put that brick away. So social media is just not going to be accessible for me except those specific windows of time that I've allowed myself to. So again, for each of the behaviors that you're tackling with your dopamine fast, see if you can come up with a rigid and structured plan that involves some sort of distance. Can you remove a substance from the house so you don't even have access to it? Or can you put it far enough away that it's just inconvenient for you to go get it? See if there's a way that you can use distance and space to make this inconvenient and a little bit less accessible for you. And then the final self-binding strategy is what's called a value-based strategy. And we touched on this a little bit in the last video. Write down your values. Write down the kind of person you want to be and remind yourself of those values. So for example, again, phone addiction. I'm a yoga teacher. I spend my life teaching people how to be present, how to be aware of their bodies, how to be aware of the environment that they're in, how to regulate their nervous system, how to breathe well and move with intention. And then here I am scrolling endlessly on my phone, hijacking my nervous system, dysregulating it, filling my brain with chaos, checking out of my physical environment to be tapped into this virtual environment. My phone use goes directly against everything that I want to be and everything that I teach. So if we can really get clear on how our behaviors are in conflict with our values or who we desire to be in life, that can also be a way to keep ourselves accountable. The second part of that is choosing behaviors that do align with your values. So for me, instead of using my phone, what are things that I would like to be doing that are in alignment with my values? Well, I like to play with my animals and snuggle with them. I like to read. I like to work on creative projects and art. I like to spend valuable time with my husband. I like to play music with him. There's all these things I would very much rather be doing than scrolling my phone. Apply this to your stuff. Go through and see, again, not only how your current behaviors are not in alignment with your values, but then come up with some replacements that are in alignment with your values and write those down instead. That's all I've got for you for day 3, but this is a really big task, so please take your time in your journal. I wrote this down and it took me 3 pages to get this all down. So take your time with it, write as much as you need to, come up with a plan and a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. Really think this through and come up with as many tactics as you can to make it harder for yourself to fall into these habits. That's all I've got for you for day 3, except for the fact that you're going to pick your start date, and the next video is for whenever you have started your dopamine fast. So, best of luck, although it's not about luck, it's about commitment and willingness to keep going even when it's challenging. So, I will see you in our next video.